Welcome to Horrible Fates, where the most unexpected and tragic endings to seemingly ordinary lives are examined. We will take some time to explore the darkness that can lurk just beneath the surface of everyday existence. Welcome to The Cellar. It was August 11th, 2014, in South Salt Lake City, Utah. South Salt Lake is a part of the Salt Lake City metropolitan area and has a total population of around 26,000 residents. To begin our story, a 911 call was placed to police about a Hispanic man who had been seen flashing a gun at a 7-Eleven gas station. Officer Bron Cruz would arrive on site where he swiftly exits his vehicle. It's at this point on the body cam footage that we see Officer Bron Cruz begin his swift approach towards three young men that had arrived at the 7-Eleven together. These three men were Hispanic, and Officer Cruz assessed that one of these men may indeed be carrying a firearm. Two of the men would raise their hands, standing next to a vehicle, while Officer Cruz began walking towards 20-year-old Dillon Taylor. Taylor can be seen as the one wearing a white shirt. Now, it's unclear if Taylor did or did not see Officer Cruz arrive, but as Officer Cruz comes up behind Taylor, you can see that Taylor has his hands in his waistband and his back is turned to the police officer. It has also been debated over, but based on video evidence, Dillon Taylor appears to have his earbuds in both ears at the time. It's unclear if he even knows that Officer Cruz is following behind him as he's walking away. Officer Cruz would start yelling instructions at Dillon Taylor. He yells at Taylor, instructing him to get his hands out 3 separate times. You can hear in the recording someone say, "Nah, fool." Police have reported this as being said by Dillon Taylor to Officer Cruz. The entire ordeal only lasts mere seconds as Dillon Taylor eventually appears to turn slightly towards Officer Cruz while pulling his hands from his pants. In a split second, 2 shots are fired, entering the body of 20-year-old Dillon Taylor.
Get your hands out now! Get your hands out! Get them out!
Officer Cruz calls for emergency services and attempts to control the bleeding. But before emergency services arrive, it's reported that Dillon Taylor no longer has a pulse. His young life would come to an end as he bled out on the hard concrete of the 7-Eleven parking lot. On the body cam footage, you can see the headphone cord coming out of Taylor's pocket and going up to his ears, further insinuating that he had his earbuds on. Whether he was listening to anything at the time is undetermined. Following the tragedy, Dillon Taylor's family would sue the police department, as it was found that neither Dillon Taylor or any of those with him had a weapon on them. Dillon Taylor was holding only a cell phone, headphones, wallet, a lighter, a Snickers bar, and a nickel when he was shot. In the end, it appears the cops simply killed an unarmed, innocent man. 10th Circuit Court of Appeals Judge Jerome Holmes stated, "Officers need not wait until they see the gun's barrel or the knife's blade before using deadly force to protect themselves or those around them." Officer Bron Cruz was ultimately granted qualified immunity. Qualified immunity is a legal doctrine that protects government officials, including law enforcement, from individual liability in civil lawsuits, unless they violated a clearly established constitutional right. It essentially means that officials are generally not held personally liable for their actions, as long as they acted in accordance with established legal principles at the time. They ultimately felt that Bron Cruz's actions were justified and that his concern for being shot was warranted given the situation. Senior Circuit Judge Carlos F. Lucero stated, Cruz shot Taylor within just 22 seconds of pulling up at a 7-Eleven, at which point Taylor's sole crimes were walking away from an unconstitutional police stop and pulling up his pants. As you can see, people are split down the middle on this case. Now, here's my take. What could Dillon Taylor do to avoid getting shot from watching this video? Seriously, watch the video and tell me, what was he to do to avoid being fired upon? It appears whatever Taylor does to respond to this officer is going to be perceived as a threat, and he's going to be shot. I've rewatched the video over and over, and I just can't see a scenario where Officer Bron Cruz doesn't pull the trigger. Dillon Taylor's brother was on scene and corroborated that his brother had his earphones in and initially could not hear the cop. When he did turn and attempt to pull his hands out, he was immediately fired upon. Now, on one hand, I completely understand that the police have to react swiftly based on perceived threat. But Dillon Taylor was unarmed, and I simply can't see how he was ever going to get out of this scenario alive. What are your thoughts on this case? I know this one can be very divisive. I am a full supporter of the police department. My uncle was a police detective, so I understand both sides of the coin. And in the end, I just want to take a brief moment to send my deepest condolences to all of Dillon Taylor's family and friends. This story takes us to the Fairview Avenue station in Downers Grove, Illinois. Fairview Avenue is one of 3 railroad stations on Metra's BNSF line in Downers Grove. The station is located 20.3 miles or 32.7 kilometers from Chicago's Union Station, the east end of the line. It was August 26, 1991. A railroad enthusiast with a camera was at the Fairview Avenue station filming the E9 locomotives in action, as it was known that the last of these trains were soon to be retired in the early 90s. In the early to mid-20th century, Chicago's train system heavily relied on EMD E9 locomotives. These powerful, streamliner-style diesels were integral to connecting the city and its suburbs. At 5:52 p.m. that evening, the train enthusiast was filming the locomotives passing through the station. As he filmed, 41-year-old Mary T. Wojtyla, a mother of 3, was walking with her lawyer and discussing her upcoming divorce proceedings. At 5:53 p.m., the crossing bells and lights would begin to go off as the E9 BN number 9912 was coming through on the middle track with the racetrack commuter train. As the gates closed, several people continued to make their way across. The BN number 9912 continued its approach, blaring its horn to warn those of its imminent arrival through the station. On the video, you can see a woman glance out and debate for a moment whether or not to try and race and cross the tracks. Seeing the train barreling down made her decision simple, as she turned around to wait patiently. As the video continues on, you will soon see Mary and her lawyer come into frame. In a clearly distracted state, they approach the tracks before Mary's lawyer realizes the danger of the oncoming locomotive. The lawyer stops, but Mary keeps walking.
Stopping here now, only 5:45. We've had several more trains, another one in sight behind it as I have light. And then there, maybe on the center track. Run over here.
Mary would be struck by the train at 60 miles per hour and hurled in the direction of the person recording the entire ordeal. Mary's lawyer was perfectly fine, but Mary was not so lucky. The impact killed her instantly, hurling her badly damaged body at onlookers. I found a quote from a passenger inside the locomotive that day. I was a passenger on the express train which struck her. When the engineer slammed on the emergency brakes as we passed the local train stop at Fairview Avenue, I knew something was wrong. Once we came to a stop, I looked out from my window seat and saw the horrible sight of a woman's body twisted and bent in every direction, laying directly under my window. I instinctively yelled, "Oh my God." We sat there for what seemed like an eternity before they even put a sheet over her. That sight haunted me for a long time. I rode commuter trains in Chicago for 30 years and was always amazed at some of the things people would do around them. Mary had been in a hurry to go sign her divorce papers at the time and was clearly distracted and not paying close attention to her surroundings. The entire incident delayed commuters for hours as police would eventually arrive on scene. The police would speak with the engineer of the train and proceeded to ask him to back the train up in order to reenact exactly what had happened. It's been reported that the engineer was so seriously affected by what had happened and having to reenact it all with Mary's body still there on the tracks that he was unable to continue and had to ultimately be relieved of his duties. In the aftermath of everything, Mary's estate would file a wrongful death lawsuit. This lawsuit would later be dismissed in 1996 as the railroad argued that they were not responsible, as Mary had walked through the crossing when the bells were ringing and the gate was down. Sadly, Mary left behind 3 children, and I want to take a brief moment to send my deepest condolences to all her family and friends. This story takes us to Kuala Lumpur. Kuala Lumpur is the capital city of Malaysia. It is the largest city in the country, covering an area of 243 square kilometers, or 94 square miles. The city has a population of over 2 million total residents. It was October 25th, 2017. A 68-year-old man named Lim Ba was preparing to perform a stunt called human steaming at a Chinese temple in Kuala Sanglang, Kedah. It is said that Lim Ba was a medium who practiced the philosophy of Taoism. To give some context, Taoism is a diverse philosophical and religious tradition originating in China that emphasizes living in harmony with the Tao, which can be translated as the way or the path. It's often associated with concepts like yin and yang, wu wei, effortless action, and ziran, naturalness, aiming for a balanced and harmonious existence. Within Taoist tradition, a spirit medium is a person who is believed to be able to communicate with and be possessed by deities or spirits. They act as a channel for divine communication, providing guidance, healing, and spiritual support to those seeking assistance. With some context given, I found that Lim Ba had performed this human steaming stunt/ritual on numerous occasions. Now, why would he perform such a stunt, you may ask? Well, the purpose of a human steaming stunt, also known as a human walk stunt, is primarily for demonstrating physical endurance and attracting believers, particularly within certain religious or cultural contexts. Lim Ba would set everything up and proceed to sit on top of a bubbling wok covered by a giant metal lid. As onlookers videoed it all, things seemed to be going as planned. But after 30 minutes, witnesses began hearing banging from inside the lid. By the time the lid was removed, well, it was a horrifying scene. After 10 years of performing the ritual, Lim Ba's body simply couldn't handle it at his age. He was found unconscious with second-degree burns on his body. Those around helped get Lim's body away from the extreme heat. By the time paramedics arrived, it was too late. Lim Ba had passed on. Following an autopsy, it was found that the man had suffered a massive heart attack. From what's been reported by his family, Lim had undergone a bypass just a year prior, so all signs point to his body simply failing him. In his last attempt, Lim had only made it 30 minutes. But there are reports that he had once done the stunt for 75 minutes straight. A crazy feat in and of itself. Being steamed alive, I can't imagine what it's like to put yourself through such a stunt, so I'll be sure to avoid anything like what Limbaugh put himself through. As always, I do want to take a moment and send my deepest condolences to all of Limbaugh's family and friends. A big thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in to another episode. If you enjoy the content that I make here on the channel, then please hit that like and subscribe button. It goes a long way in helping the channel continue to grow. Also, you can check the description box below and find the link to my merch store and a link to my membership tier for the channel. For only $2.99 a month, you can help support my channel further, and you get some cool perks to go with it. One of those perks is having your name listed here in the end of each of my videos. So thank you to all my Cellar Dweller members. Also, if you'd like to submit a real-life scary story of any kind, please do so using the email I have linked in the description box below. As always, I do all the research, writing, recording, and editing for the channel myself, so anything that you do to help support the channel is greatly appreciated. And until next time, I will see you all again as we head back into the cellar.